Hi, how's it going? Welcome to another podcast. My guest today is Rebecca Hogarth. Rebecca works for the Gold Rush TV show, which is filmed near Dawson City in the Yukon. Um, I happened to be up in Dawson City for the music festival this year, and so I met up with Rebecca to talk about her time in Costa Rica, both participating and volunteering for an ayahuasca center there. She's gone there year after year, mostly to help out. As she'll explain, she's done over 100 ceremonies, but only drank ayahuasca a handful of times. So she's really been around that culture, that ceremony environment for a long time, and has a lot to share about the people there. And so we started out talking about that. We also filmed this in a friend's living room who was just kind enough to let us do that. So that was awesome. It worked out great. I mean, you'll see there's like a little mushroom lamp between it. It was perfect. But we do have a couple people walking by now and then, so I just made a couple edits here and there, and you'll notice that. And that's, for the most part, all that was. Yeah, we get into a lot. Rebecca shares knowledge of different things, including the Vedas. I get into different things like my greenhouse. I discuss that a little bit. And yeah, this was really fun. Big thanks to Rebecca. Enjoy it. Check it out. This is me with Rebecca Hogarth.
It kind of found me. A lot of people might find this hokey, but I completely believe in synchronicity. And it kind of all these things lined up. And I was talking to this guy, Teo, who I met in Nicaragua. We started talking about spirituality and my how I felt about spirituality and my instincts based on it. And he said, you really need to go see the shaman. And I didn't know what he was talking about. I really didn't understand. I had never heard of ayahuasca before. And then I had a friend who, I had a friend who was actually Costa Rican, and he was taking a bus right to the place Cartago that I needed to go, the most religious epicenter of Costa Rica. And he said, I know how to get you to this place that you're thinking of going. And it was just perfect. The stars just lined up perfectly for me to go there. And this guy sounded really intense about me seeing this,
Like, because you had sort of
shaman.
told him your spiritual beliefs or where you were.
And he said, you need to go
He's like,
see
this
this.
is for you.
Yeah,
You gotta do this.
you need to do this.
Hmm.
And it was interesting because after I did it, ayahuasca was popping up everywhere. I saw books on it. People were talking about it. But before that, I had never even heard of it.
You know, and I hear that from so many people. Like, yeah, someone was talking to me about DMT, which is the active ingredient in ayahuasca. And they're like, I hadn't ever heard of DMT before. And then I read a book on it, thought I wanted to try it. And the next day, someone offered me DMT. It was just like, how does that happen? You know?
That's how my belief system kind of works. I don't know what it is. I'm not God, so I don't have the answers to all the details. But there's definite magic and synchronicity going on. And actually, I've been writing in my journal about synchronicity for maybe 13 years now. That's mostly what I journal entry about.
So you kind of believe in things happening like sort of like a...
For a reason or paying attention to the signs, maybe.
Paying attention, yeah.
And it's not that I believe that everything is necessarily laid out for you. It's not like I believe in a combination, I suppose, of existentialism versus divine intervention. If you're being good, you're got good karma, things are going to come to you. You'll find the right people. If you're negative and you're grumpy in your life and you're not nice, you're kind of setting the path too. And that has to do with energy. So it's not one thing. It's always a spectrum of things, I think. So that's how I believe.
Yeah, and so there's a sort of faith in that. You have sort of a faith in whatever it is you believe in. You call it God, or you call it just the universe, or something, or yourself. This is faith that things will work out and opportunities will come to you.
Absolutely.
That kind of idea.
And I think I learned that when starting to backpack and travel the world. And so, for instance, when I tie myself here to Dawson and I'm working, I'm putting myself kind of under limited or restricted life. So I'm not being as free and open. And once I start traveling, it's amazing, the synchronicities and what happens.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So why do you think that traveling brings it out?
Because you're a free and determining agent. You're letting, I don't know how you would say this, like you're opening yourself up to the divine happening more than like throwing yourself into a job, for instance, in the bush for 5 months at a time where it's monotonous and there's no room for change or anything to kind of come to you.
And you build up habits and stuff. So you're just doing the same stuff like every day.
Monotony sets in. And I find that when I'm out there traveling, it feels like I'm doing what I was meant to do. And, you know, I'm in the right place at the right time.
So back to like how you found out about this ayahuasca place. This guy brought you there almost forcefully.
No, he told me about it. He actually didn't come. He had this intense conversation with me for a few days when I was in San Juan del Sur in Nicaragua, and said, you really need to go see this shaman. Her name's Kuyai. She's a 10th generation shaman.
Oh, wow.
And her family sends her the medicine to Costa Rica from Peru.
Okay, I see.
And then she runs the center there.
Right. So you went down there. You believed this guy that he was telling you something that was maybe going to help you in some way. What kind of idea did you have about ayahuasca before you went down?
Nothing.
Like you just knew it was a psychedelic experience.
Kind of, yeah. I went into it knowing it was a introspective journey. Not something that was going to be fun, like drugs like acid or mushrooms or cocaine or MDMA or whatever it is that people do for entertainment, that it was really introspective, and I knew that much.
You had that mindset at least going into it.
Yeah.
Right. So then how many like people were at this place?
She only allows 10 at a time.
Okay. 10 guests?
10 guests at a time. She was very in tune. If somebody showed up and was seeking it for the wrong reason, she would turn them away.
Okay.
And I did see that happen where, because people are coming up for a good time. They think they're into drugs and want to do drugs.
So is there any kind of like initiation or like paperwork people have to do or anything like that to like be accepted into it? Or is it more just like she meets them? And
I think it's intuition for her. She would know right away who belongs and who doesn't. I kind of feel, or who came for the right reasons.
Right.
And mostly people were not turned away, but the odd time.
Yeah. If it's like obvious.
Yeah, it's very energy sensitive. So I'm sure she wouldn't want that person affecting the rest of the group.
Yeah, with a group thing, it can change the whole dynamic.
Exactly.
Like that.
I mean, my first experience, I'm just going to jump in and tell you because I'm really actually enthusiastic about it.
Sure.
There was 10 people. At the time, this ayahuasca center was very poor. She had no real amenities. It was this longhouse out behind her house, and there was nothing but one toilet. And of course, our little buckets that we throw up in and purge in. And the next morning after the experience, we all started talking about what we went through. And each person, of course, when you're in it, there's definitely a time where you don't want to be in it. It's hard work. But you have to trust in the medicine that it's doing what you need for you. And 6 of the 10 experienced death full on. So they were very scared during the ceremony, which kind of instinctively says to me, and I'm no expert on this except for my intuition, I feel, is that that's what they were scared of. So if your biggest fear in life is death, then ayahuasca is going to show you exactly what it is so that you no longer have that as your biggest obstacle. Another girl was moaning like orgasmically, which was funny through most of the ceremony. Her issue, she was a bit of a nymphomaniac and had a lot of sexual issues. So she was obviously working them through because she said when she woke up the next day, she had basically had sex with all of us in the room, but more on a spiritual sense, I guess. Like, I don't know how her, but everybody's interpretation is so different based on your experience. Mine was empathy. I had put my hand on the guy beside me when he was purging. I was feeling bad for him. And as soon as I put my hand on his back, I heard a voice very strongly say, no, take your hand off of him and go outside. This is not your journey. This is his journey. And you need to stay out of it, because by me being so empathetic, I'm disregarding my own journey. So I don't have to look at myself.
Oh, okay. Focusing too much on
and I feel that this is definitely one of my biggest things, is if I put myself into your problems and solve you and help you, I'm not good. Yeah, but I'm not, that's an ego thing. I'm not looking at myself and helping who needs it most. by me being the best me will then help others. And this was a huge lesson. And yeah,
So
it was a
like
really intense experience.
Selfish lesson you had to learn, like focus on yourself a bit.
Yeah, that your empathy is almost borderline. Yeah, selfish in a sense. Yeah.
That's interesting. So what about just like do you have like visual things happening?
Absolutely. I went to the pyramids. She took me right to the pyramids.
She? Oh. Ayahuasca?
When you do ayahuasca, I think the consensus, and just I can only speak from my personal experience, is that it's definitely a feminine plant. Yeah. It's a feminine entity, and you're attached right away to Pachamama. That's I think it's more either Peruvian or Incan term for Mother Earth. And I think that's who you're connected with instantly. And there's definitely a presence of that throughout the entire experience.
Yeah, and it's often referred to as Mother Ayahuasca.
Yeah, it is Mother Ayahuasca for sure. And I was able to see my spirit animal, which was really interesting because you hear of this through native tradition and you never really think much of it. But I had an owl staring me in the face for a really long time. And it wasn't like seeing the owl, it was like having the owl's eyes right in front of my face for a really long time. And when I asked her the next day, she said, "That's your spirit animal." Apparently, I found out later on when I started talking to other shamans that ayahuasca and all creation came from, and all the information we have came from the pyramids. And that's why I would have been taken there, which is interesting as well.
Yeah, you know what? I did ayahuasca, like I told you earlier, like a couple of years ago, a couple winters ago, and there were, I think, multiple people who talked about seeing the pyramids actually. And actually, we were in Peru, so people talked about like flying above Machu Picchu.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, like, pretty cool.
There is definitely some links with when you talk to others who have done it, especially with how would you like the geometry, the patterns?
Okay, yeah. Just the visual. There's like the sort of flower, like maybe a darkness in the middle, and then like light shooting out from this sort of circular thing that I see a lot in DMT inspired or ayahuasca inspired artwork and stuff. People paint these symbols a lot, these same things. Seems like people see
because when you Google ayahuasca and you look at the images, every person can relate to those images that you see because we all kind of see the same thing.
It's funny how, it can be like a really shared experience, but then also people have like totally different experiences too within that. Like
but we're also individual and super unique, and each person has their own set of issues based on how we were raised, your environment, your religion, whatever. And I think she'll show you how she knows you'll be, so each person will get something completely different based on our perspective. Because if she shows me something, I might not relate to it. So she's going to show me what I relate to and how I will intake that information.
Yeah. That seems to be why it's so powerful as a medicine, because it really brings out almost yourself, or it shows you parts of yourself maybe you didn't see, or it really is so specific, like so individual for each person.
I feel like it's a stripping. It's like taking off the layers on that crust we've built up too, and it brutally rips them off.
Right, yeah.
So you wake up.
Which isn't always pleasant and whatnot.
No, it's absolutely, especially the purging.
Right, yeah.
I've one time did 3 cups of ayahuasca and I had no control over myself and what I was seeing, and literally the people in the temple thought they had seen like a dark shadow moving up and down me, and God, it felt like a demon was coming out of me. I don't know what that was. I kind of related it, which is super strange, to an experience I had in India where I was trapped in an ashram for 3 months with a crazy black magic guru.
Okay.
And
trapped?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a long story. Not really trapped, but something happened anyways. And I feel like ayahuasca took out whatever happened then during that session. So I don't know. That's another long story.
Yeah. Maybe we can just talk a little bit about like this place you were at. What was the name of I don't know if you call it a curandero or ayahuasquero or...
It was just the Costa Rica Ayahuasca Center. It's actually on Facebook. Okay. There's lots of links. People can go there now. It's come a long way. They've made money to be able to install facilities to have like week-long sessions now where
Oh,
you can
yeah.
go stay in a beautiful room and they give you a break. You drink every other day.
Right.
If you want, you can go for a 1 day session.
And what was the name? What's the person who leads it?
Well, it was Kuyai. She was the Peruvian shaman until
Okay.
her husband took her to the States.
Oh, okay.
And she trained this guy, Charles,
Oh,
and
okay.
he's from Quebec. And he's
taken over.
Cano and a few other Costa Ricans. A lot of Costa Ricans are heavily involved, and they're always really good musicians. That seems to be a link.
Right.
And the music is really important to the journey as well.
Hmm.
And the rattles, guitars, flutes, all kinds of beautiful
So
music
why is that
being
important,
played.
do you think?
It's hard to say because I think that there's definitely something to be said for music and its healing effect and where it can take you, and it's energy based. There's frequencies going on, so it can trigger and things
even
in
here,
the brain.
like we're at the music fest now, and just last night, being in the big main tent with the main stage and being just, the music is so loud, you have to get in, you have to be into it, and so whatever the artist does kind of takes you to different places, and you feel that without drugs, you just get into the music. So when you combine that with like something like ayahuasca, it's pretty clear. Yeah, it'll affect your experience.
And I have copied a lot of that shamanic music because it was so important to me to have, because it does trigger such emotion now when I listen to it, definitely. One of the most profound moments I had on ayahuasca was really cool and serendipitous as well, because I opened my eyes and it was the best moment I've ever had that I can remember. And I was this little bird, and I was on a leaf, and I could feel myself like jumping around, trying to look through a dewdrop and seeing the spectrum of color and the magnification behind it. And I opened my eyes, and Charles said, I went up to him and I said, oh my God, I was a little bird. And I was like jumping around on a leaf, and I was looking through this dewdrop and trying to see the magnification. He said, it's weird because I was just thinking, you're my little bird, because we're really good friends. And so it's like, who knows what that means or how that means. Did he infuse that image in me? Did I project it into him? I mean, all this is left to question. But I have no doubt in my mind there's something going on with this medicine. Most of the time, beside my experiences, I got involved in the temple and felt a calling to help people through their journeys. They always like volunteers to come help, because you need somebody to empty the buckets. You need somebody to be there for them. You don't want to interrupt their journey. You want to leave them to it, but you want to be there for them. And I've had some of the most humbling experiences doing this. So I could have drank 160 times now. I only drank 6.
Right. So you started out, you went there as a guest or to try it, and then you stayed there for a long time.
Yeah, I became really close with the people running the center and the volunteers. They're like my family, and they just are, they're the embodiment of love. They're incredible people to be around. And mostly it was Americans coming who are quite heavily Christian.
Really?
And they come because they know there's something to this, but they're scared and they wouldn't want their congregation to know, because they would obviously be so judgmental. And I'll tell you that I have never seen anybody wake up and not have changed their entire mind about Christianity. They don't change their mind about faith. They change their mind about the details based therein. And that has been one man in particular who I'll never forget woke up. And I guess what Pachamama, Mother Ayahuasca, did was give him a reel that played over and over and over again, showing him how he treated people. And he just had his head in his hands the whole next day going, I'm such a bad person. I am a horrible person. I will never treat people this way again. I can't. But nobody wakes up not happy about their experience. They sometimes wake up super exhausted. There's all different reactions to it, but you always feel like you're a better person having had done it, because you just were able to work into the matrix or something and see that we aren't just meat. We don't just live and die. There's something else going on. And that's kind of cool.
It really, it's inspiring.
It is.
You go, oh, there's something else going on. I like when I talked to Phil Gattensby, he just called it the Great Mystery. And I like that because it doesn't put a specific label on it.
It is the great mystery. I like that. That's good wording.
Yeah, I really like that too. Because otherwise you start talking about God and it has different connotations.
Yeah,
and
the
it's
word
hard
God.
to
Yeah.
get into, or even spirituality and what that is and these things. How long did you stay then in Costa Rica?
I'm usually there for a 5-month stretch.
Oh, so you're still
I just
going
go and
back.
live there, yeah.
Oh,
or
okay.
whatever. I'll probably go there this winter too. My friends bought property down there. And I love the jungle. I wake up in the morning and do yoga with monkeys watching me at 6 a.m.
Cool,
There's
yeah.
blue butterflies this big.
Yeah,
It's just, and I love the ocean. I love the Caribbean side.
It's so hot as well. Oh my God.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. And you only need a tiny little suitcase. It's so low maintenance. It's great.
So that's pretty cool that, you said you've done ayahuasca 6 times total, but you've been part of like 100 ceremonies.
Yeah. Over the span of 6 years, I've done it 6 times. It's definitely, I like to prep myself properly. I like to respect the medicine as best I can. So you have to have the willpower to try to purge your body of meats, acidic foods, things like this to purify your body, because I feel like part of the purge is cleansing the body so it can work its way to your subconscious or wherever it is going to do this work. And the cleaner your body is, the more profound an experience you're going to have. And I really feel that there's a consciousness in this medicine. So if you give, she'll give. She wants to see that she'll give.
It's a relationship.
Yeah, it's a relationship.
I think that's true. I do think that's true as well.
And
not just for ayahuasca, but other drugs too. I think for something like mushrooms, I think there's a relationship with mushrooms.
I agree.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
A couple people there was some people who do it and felt nothing. I don't believe that's because I believe that sometimes the medicine works in peculiar ways. I feel that it will have an effect, but later on they won't even know it. It'll be something going on chemically that they don't have any clue of really on a conscious level. Or it's going to take them a few sessions before it's going to grip them for one reason or another. Maybe it's purging different layers.
Yeah, I knew a couple people in this group that I went with, and the first night we did it, neither of them felt anything, and both the next day said they were like so pissed off and angry. And they're like, "God, it's bullshit."
They were disappointed.
Yeah,
they wanted something,
like,
maybe, and that's it.
But then they're like. Then, like, by the end of the day, they're like, man, I need to be patient. And they're like, God, I'm so impatient. And I was just wanting something to happen. And then, they that was like their lesson, anything, that they were just these impatient, impulsive people.
And maybe there's a quiet whisper in there that's teaching that to them more and more throughout the day, though, that's what you need to work on, or we're not going to help you.
The shamans I was with said, they kept repeating that a lot, was that, like, don't go into too many expectations. I know a lot of you have heard that all these elaborate stories, people will go back and see their relatives, or there's all these things that happen, but it could work in a totally different way for you, and it's going to be something that's going to work over time. Like, don't expect to just be like healed or anything. Like, you're not just going to wake up totally different.
Exactly. Yeah, they have too big an expectation.
Hey, kitty.
Hi, kitten. That's funny you say that. I know people who got to meet with either their live relative or passed away relative and spend time with them because that's what they wanted most.
Wow.
And so they were able to connect, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
Like dancing with their grandmother or visiting. Awkward.
Yeah. No, I've heard stories like that too from the people that I was with as well.
Yeah, it's one of these topics where I don't talk about this generally.
It's hard to.
If somebody brings it up and I know that they're on the level to talk about this in an open way, but a lot of people will just cut it off and be like, it's drugs, and that's the only way that they think of. Yeah. And you do this medicine and tell me it's drugs because it is not fun. It is not fun. It's not fun in any way. It is work. And you work for it, and you purge the darkness that you've built up. You purge your resentments. You purge all these things, and it's painful. I've seen people go through such pain, And so these people are warriors. These people who come to do ayahuasca have this, not everyone is called to it. And I don't think everybody should do it.
Yeah.
So if you're scared and you're paranoid and you're not sure, don't.
Yeah.
If you feel a calling to it, you're going to know. I think that you have to trust in your instincts. And I really believe in that. They're there for a reason.
Right. Yeah. I think too with with ayahuasca, it's like it's a good thing for our culture because of how we view drugs. It's like something like marijuana is like so easily abused because you can use it recreationally and all this stuff, and it can be addictive in sort of a psychological way,
yes,
habitual
absolutely.
way. But ayahuasca is not. Ayahuasca is from this other place that's like it's kind of sucks to do it, and you get nervous beforehand,
I'm scared
and you're
to
like,
do
oh
it
God,
a lot of the time. Here we go.
And like you said, you've done it 6 out of 100. You've chose to do it. So that speaks to it's not addictive. You can't call it. So it's like, and it comes from this other culture. It's this different thing. Has all these. So I feel like it's a good thing. It's kind of like the right thing to introduce to the culture because it comes from this place that is respectful and has traditional beliefs behind it and this whole practice with it.
It was the medicine, I believe, at the beginning of time that taught us how to work communally and what our job was. As healers of the planet, we were here to work symbiotically with the earth to heal the planet, and it would work with us as well. And we've completely lost our way. And I think that's why ayahuasca just made this huge comeback. You can tell the world waking up. All kinds of stuff's happening in the world. I mean, we can't deny that. And how negative things are becoming all of a sudden, and the odd things. I don't want to go into specifics.
Right.
But I feel like, of course, it's going this way because the powers that be realize everyone's waking up, and it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
So the crazy people are out there like, we need to hold on to this control we've had for so long because people are starting to wake up, and we can't dumb them down anymore.
The internet,
they're
and all
earthing, they're eating right, they're communing with nature, they're going back to their grassroots. We're finding ourselves again, and ayahuasca is like a kickstart to that place. And it's so great to do because inherently all your life there's magic, but society tells you no. There's not.
And so you're kind of looking for, it's in the back of your head. You're kind of just like, this can't be it.
It's like proof. You do it, proof.
And you're like, oh shit.
And I've been studying Buddhism, Hinduism, faith, religion. So I've always been a spiritual seeker, no doubt. It's just who I am. And ayahuasca is the most profound thing out of anything I've ever done in my whole life.
No, I like what you said. I was telling you before about this guy I interviewed who treats mostly heroin addicts with ibogaine or iboga. And one thing he said to me was that some of these psychedelics, whether it's ayahuasca or iboga or something, what they do is show you the work that you can do.
That's right.
And I really like that. I think that's true.
That's a really good
to work on.
Yeah.
Because
it'll show you yourself. Of course, people I think too are very scared of ayahuasca and ibogaine, especially ibogaine, because it is going to tear you a new one. And if you have done bad things and know inherently, that's scary because you know it's going to tap into all that.
Absolutely.
And
you can see why. Oh. Awkward. My phone.
That's
I should put that on silent. Very unprofessional of me. Yeah, no, I think it's true, and I think that's fair. Like, if you're someone who has a lot, however you want to put it, a lot of demons or a lot of skeletons or baggage or whatever, it's a scary thing to have to lay it out, like, or to have a mirror,
Yeah, that's a good way of explaining the mirror.
Yeah,
a lot of people describe the ayahuasca experience as a mirror. Ibogaine's interesting. I don't know a lot about it. There's an iboga center in Costa Rica. I want to go visit.
Oh, I've heard about it.
And I really want to go see them because they've done some amazing work there. And all you have to do is watch the videos of the guys who were heroin addicts forever. And again, I'm not especially studious and don't know how to explain this except based on a real, I guess, kinesthetic level is how I work. But it's more, ibogaine seems to be able to reset like if you get off heroin, so many addicts relapse because they've messed the chemistry in their brain, the serotonin, all these chemicals. You've screwed with all these circuits. So now when you're sober, you can't be happy.
Right.
So you bounce back to going back to the heroin because that's what made you feel happy.
You need something.
But the ibogaine apparently resets that chemistry so that when they come out of their trip or their work, it actually resets it so they can find themselves happy again like they did before the heroin ever started. So they really don't go back to it.
Yeah, it's like this miracle cure for heroin because it treats it on these different levels, psychologically and physically. The physical withdrawal symptoms. Yeah, this guy, like Trevor would explain it like it would sort of scrub the opiate receptors clean. Whereas normally they're just like craving, they're always like empty. They need that heroin, they need the opiate.
Yeah.
Whereas ibogaine would get in there and just reset them or whatever.
Isn't that fascinating to
like
think
amazing.
There's this? And I wish more people were open to this. And I mean, it seems to me a lot of people are brought to it too because they're at their wits' end. They don't know what to do. They hear about this, they're scared of it, and they go do it. And wow, it changes their whole life. That's amazing that people get their lives back.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so that there's a solution, there's a cure, and it seems like a sure. What's interesting too is ayahuasca having cured schizophrenia. I really do believe a lot of the time, and I hope I don't offend anybody by saying this, because I do believe we need medication for some illnesses, but I believe we truly over medicate. It's definitely an industry.
Right. Kind of a misdiagnosis situation too, possibly, like labeling it something that maybe it's not quite.
But I believe a lot of our hangups, our anxieties, our OCDs, all these things, our agoraphobia, people become scared of going outside. It's always this, it starts as something small and then builds up. It's like having a fear of heights. When I am on top of a building and I look down, I get that feeling, but I don't allow that to get into my brain and then create this huge fear, which I could see. And I think that what ayahuasca does is it fixes what we've done to ourselves, this mind game or whatever fears that we've created. And so a lot of people do ayahuasca and cure themselves of a lot of diagnosed ailments such as schizophrenia and bipolar and things like that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, that type of stuff for sure. Any kind of anxiety disorder, sort of depression type of symptoms, things like that, because those have that mental root to them, that it really is based in how we think about ourselves and our lives and things. Seems to be able to get in there and help people with that.
It's really exciting. It's really interesting. And I really want to just wrap my life up here sometimes and just go down to Costa Rica and live there, because you have a world of people like you who believe in this stuff, who believe in against the food industry, growing organic foods, eating whole foods, why we're so disconnected from ourselves, from this energy source we've always had via the earth.
Right.
You know, and
these are plants we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like that give us, whether it's iboga is a root that comes from Africa. Ayahuasca is a combination of two plants in the Amazon. They're just plants, you know.
And that's it. It's so fascinating. And I mean, the closest thing, it sounds really cliche, but Avatar.
Yeah, I know.
Avatar
that movie was amazing, right?
Is the closest thing I can tell you what she took me and how she explained how we were supposed to work.
They had that really visual, direct connection in it where they literally plugged themselves into the earth. Yeah.
And we were supposed to.
Yeah.
You know, you have to take your socks off and put your bare feet on the ground. I really believe. And when you, there's a science on it. I think it's the free ions. I don't know what it is.
I don't do that
surface.
hardly ever. I'm always wearing socks.
Yeah, and they say they're
shoes.
blockers. And I mean, this sounds all hippie and people don't have to believe it, but you definitely feel healthier. So up here in the Yukon, it gets pretty cold, but any chance you get when it's warm out. But this is why they say the Aboriginal people were always connected and had that vital source, because they wore moccasins and the leather is still a conductor. Right? Yeah. All our nerve endings are in our feet to absorb it. So by touching a plant with your hands, by having your bare feet on the grass, this is just one of the many things of a spectrum of why we're so disconnected.
Right.
And
it's a cool idea. I've heard it because I've heard that before, and they're making like earth mats or something.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, do you? What does that do? What is an earth mat?
Again, I don't know how to explain it so technically, but you plug it into the ground. So when you're here in the freezing cold and you can't put your bare feet on the ground because it's cold, and you plug it into the ground in the plug. So the top one it plugs into, and there's a tester. And then it'll show you, and you do feel it. You put your feet, especially for your first time, because your body will get used to it, but you'll start to feel that tingling sensation and how it helps your body.
It conducts like...
I still can't believe I'm talking about all this stuff, because really, I'm scared still. I'm scared that people think I'm crazy, and I'm scared that people think I'm super out there. And when I go down to Costa Rica and Nicaragua, I feel like my family and my home and people who are all open-minded and like-minded. And
and that was one of the things I loved about this place that I went to in Peru. It was a huge group. So there's like 25 people there in this group. And one of the best parts of it was like the days after you do the ceremony where you talk about it with all these people. Yeah, and everyone shares their experience. And then you're actually talking to people who aren't judging you about all this different stuff. And you can kind of get a little crazy and talk about these bigger ideas, you know?
Because we're stronger together than apart. We've been systematically disconnected and separated, I feel. And
yeah, we're very isolated these days. Look at this game. It's so funny. This Pokemon Go game.
I heard about this just the other day. That's funny that you said that, because just 2 days at camp, the guy was explaining it to me, and I'm like, are you serious?
It's taken off. It's like in this crazy level. And it's just like this game that actually gets you outside to meet other people. And people are just like, you know, in love with, oh my God, I'm actually outside walking around.
I didn't realize that aspect. That's great.
Yeah.
That is great.
You actually have to move around your town to like catch these Pokemon. It's just hilarious. It's
okay, well, that's good. I see it as more of a positive thing than what I originally was like, another app that's people are addicted to, so everyone's on their phones still.
Yeah. Except it gets you out of the house. That's the main thing with this.
Exactly,
one.
yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people are stuck. It's funny, we're talking about, one of the things because I've been talking about psychedelics a lot with people and these ideas, is I end up talking about how, the idea of delusion and being delusional, and how to test these ideas, because it's hard sometimes. It's easy to go down paths and get really caught up in like a lot of spiritual stuff, but it's hard to know what's real and what's not. And I don't think you can really know. You know, you just can't. You'd have to trust in what works for you and what you think.
Trust.
That
you got to trust and have faith, I think, and
be honest
really
with yourself
important.
too. Like you have to remain at least 1% skeptical, I think, for all these ideas. That's how I feel about it.
That's
like
true.
I withhold a little bit just because I don't know, you know, and even
I think
like
it's healthy, because then it forces you to seek out more answers and more understanding of something. So it's good to understand it from a technical point of view, spiritual point of view, looking at it from all angles, and then having a more informed way of looking at it, I guess.
There's one of the people I interviewed most recently is, his name is Andrew Feldmar, and he's a psychiatrist who works with an organization, MAPS. Have you heard of MAPS? They're doing like studies. MAPS is the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, and they're doing studies with like MDMA, assisted psychotherapy for people who have like post-traumatic stress syndrome. And he's also worked with LSD in therapy situations and stuff for a long time. Anyway, one thing I really liked that he said was that what madness is linked to certainty. And that the reason, like he was talking about a specific guy, a famous case, he was like,
this is interesting.
He's like, oh, you know, this guy believed that he was Jesus or something, or something like that, or God was doing something to him. And the reason, when he came out of madness later and wrote about his experience, what he realized was that in the moment when he was crazy, when he had gone mad, he had no skepticism. There was no questioning. He just believed he believed he was Jesus, and that was just it. That was all it was. He wasn't questioning anything, and that actually being sane was being like skeptical and questioning things more.
Yes, I like this explanation. I really like this conversation. This is a really profound epiphany, because this just makes a lot of sense. It's just worded really well, because you're right. I like that a lot. I am still skeptical of the things that I have done and seen, and there's still a bit of me. And then I always think I should have more confidence and sureness in these things, but you just made me feel a lot better about the fact that I am not 100% sure of all these things. And I always want to be open, because if I am certain, I'm not open to what somebody else is going to say based on this. And I've become a better person for being open to other people's opinions and changing my viewpoints. They change all the time. It's always this open book of wanting to learn more and take in other people's ideas because it makes me more open and a
and you
better
have
person.
in order to like learn from other people too, you have to be open to new ideas and open to being wrong too.
Yeah,
And that's really
I'm
hard to
wrong all
do.
the time.
It's really hard to
Yeah.
like admit being wrong on things and stuff. And that's, I think a lot of people, that's why ayahuasca or something is so scary, because they think, what if I'm wrong? You know, and then what if I'm shown that? And then how can I even take that? What if I'm wrong about something I've been preaching for years and years and years? You know, how am I going to face that if it's not?
I know. How scary for your whole world to fall.
If your whole worldview is based on like the like very strict biblical stuff or something, and then
you all of a sudden meet Mother Earth face to face.
someone shakes that up, and you go, oh no.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean everything you believed in is. I think there's still a lot of validity to these religious texts we have. There's a lot of good information in there. It's just, it's like taking yourself and putting yourself into one book. I think you read the books and you take the pieces that make, and put into you, not vice versa. That's too much. So yeah, blind faith is a little scary sometimes.
Yeah, blind faith. I found it funny because I was always like never religious, never raised in that way at all. My mother or anything wasn't taking me to church or anything. So, and I just avoided that stuff. And then as I got into this kind of thing, with me, it was like through mushrooms, for psilocybin mushrooms. And then I did ayahuasca, and I smoked pot and these things. And I got into these ideas and then I started developing these ideas around faith and all this stuff, and I came back into religious ideas that I had avoided for so long through a totally different. And now I kind of like I don't hate religion or anything. It's just people have taken it a little too far. That's all.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. And it's fascinating studying the Vedas, and it's all astrology and psychology, and it's all the way you want to look at it. How many? I apologize. East Indians have taken their belief system and not really know anything based on the origin of it, just what their parents taught them. Right. And so they pick a deity to believe in, and they don't realize that deity is just symbolic, like Shiva wasn't actually blue, maybe. It's all representative of a story. He has 6 arms, not because he had 6 arms. Those arms were put there so that he holds, well, he doesn't have 6 arms, but some of them do. And they're holding a chalice and this, because it's all symbolic of that person and what it represents, or it's more of an emotion sometimes, and then you start to learn like Shiva and Shakti are equal. This is feminine and male energy, but just like with Christianity, this female side has been pushed down and pushed down, and it was just as important. Right. Originally in Hinduism, Shakti was just as important as Shiva. So Parvati, Shiva's wife. And then, but it's like Hollywood. And then Shiva becomes this big thing, and he's the male. And then it's all male predominant, but that's not the way it was originally written. Right. There was always a female side to these things, you know?
Our culture has kind of interpreted things differently just because of like our own mass perceptions or whatever, or how we... this masculine way of viewing the world seems like it does seem like a lot of these psychedelics do bring that the whole hippie culture, it brings in that feminine energy. I feel like that whole and just the not being as analytical and scientific. People are so caught up in science. Everything has to be proved in order for people to believe it, and it's like fine. But you can trust experience.
But some things cannot be proven.
It's hard to, and they're like this MAPS organization is really trying. They're doing these placebo studies and double blind, whatever, all this stuff to prove that MDMA can help people in therapy situations and things. But it takes a long time, and just the way the bureaucratic sort of political way everything is structured now. They need millions and millions of dollars just to get these studies going. It takes so long to get approved. So to prove something actually takes forever. It's really hard to go through this scientific process to prove to people in that way, through that lens. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's it. I think that it's always a combination of things. It's not all hard facts. There's definitely energy going on. Anybody, we've proved, you bring dogs into a old age home and they pet the dog and their blood pressure lowers. They prove that. They can't exactly explain why that works, but it does. One negative person comes into a group of positive people. That one negative person can bring all those people down. You can feel it behind you almost sometimes. Depending on how receptive you are. And I just think we've forgotten the art that's why I really wanted to go to India and Nepal, and why I spent a year and a half there was getting in touch with my mind-body connection and realizing that we were never taught that here. We were never taught to listen to our instincts. We're taught to be so external and to listen to what we're being told. Find a job, find a focus, do this, stay that, do this. And I loved everything. And I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And it was stressful. It was so much stress. Find that one thing you need to do. Well, I kind of was designed to tap into everything. And I love everything. And even if I don't love it, I'm going to try it just to see, because you don't know until you're actually doing it. You know? And I guess the way that I live my life is comfortable to me, but to most people, they don't understand how I can live this lifestyle. And
it seems stressful.
How do you have the money? How do you do it? Well, I don't have a phone. I don't have any
you make sacrifices in some ways to...
Absolutely. I'm not a non-consumer.
Yeah.
Things like this. And every time I make $25, I think that's 2 nights in another country. I'm not going to spend that on a shirt. I could go to Value Village and spend $3 on a shirt.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and I am really proud of myself in that aspect. Yeah. I'm really proud of myself that way, that I've learned how not to consume.
It's really hard to do that, to live differently, and to also be a part of this culture too. Yeah.
It's not easy to be happy and to find the secret to happiness. There's so much working against us. And that was really my goal, I realized, was I really wanted to find out how to be as happy as possible. And I'm not an expert on it, and I'm not perfectly happy all the time. But I work really hard at making peace for myself. So when I go down to Costa Rica, I had the best 2 months of my life this past winter. And I found this little cottage on a beach where no one was. I went into huge meditation after an ayahuasca experience. Actually, I drank the ayahuasca, and then I went and reflected for 2 months on the beach and did a lot of yoga, a lot of drawing, a lot of writing. I made a lot of artwork from shells. I painted a lot of rocks. I was having the best time of my life, you know, and it's nice to learn how to fall in love with yourself. I think it's really important.
Do something that actually makes you feel good, just for the sake of
doing it. And you can't unwind until you've, like, when you're working like this, and you need time to reset yourself. It's not going to happen with 2 days off. You need a few months to all of a sudden
work on momentum so much. You just get caught up, and in a couple of days you can't steer the ship another direction.
That's right.
You just keep kind of going.
It's hard to be still.
Yeah.
You know, I'm pretty hyperactive. So studying Ayurveda was fascinating, learning about the energies and how they heal people, and how my energy needs to be grounded more. So instead of running like I tried to do, or doing fast-paced exercise to burn off all this energy, I was just increasing that energy.
Right.
So I needed more meditative.
I feel like I need to do that
yoga.
in my life too. I'm always like, oh, I'm stiff and stuff. I should just go for a run and lift weights and it's like I should probably just relax a little.
Yoga's one of my favorite things in the world. Yeah, I really love it. I got my yoga teacher training in India, and did my meditation training and Reiki training.
Yeah, and I think too, with this stuff, some people might not be into what you're talking about. Some people might hear you talking about spending 2 months on a beach and just being like, "Well, fuck, I could never do that." I don't want to do that.
Absolutely.
And that's cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
You gotta kind of find your own thing, what works,
and finding out who you are and what works for you. Like people who are more earthy energy, grounded energy to begin with, should find more heightened activities to do to bring up their energy. Yeah, exactly. Right. So we're all different, and that's what I think is really important. Everything is gray. There is no right. There is no wrong.
Yeah, and I feel like you have to actually try stuff. You have to just do stuff to see. You got to try something new. For me, I took a bunch of time off this podcast recently because when I was first doing it, I was so obsessed with it. I was told I had to build a website, I had to do all this stuff I never knew how to do. I was just obsessed with learning how to edit audio and all this stuff. And then this spring, I just really wanted to learn how to build something. So I just built a greenhouse, and I've never built anything with my hands before ever. So I built this enormous greenhouse, and then I've also never really gardened. And then I just got obsessed with gardening.
That's cool.
I spent 2 months just totally not doing podcast stuff, not doing any of this, and just doing gardening.
Your hands were in the dirt.
Yeah, and it felt really good. And it was just something I felt like a calling to do. I really was inspired to do it. And that was the only way I would have got that done, because building this greenhouse was 16 feet long and 9 feet wide. And it was so hard and challenging to do, but I was so obsessed with it, and I wanted to do it so bad that it was actually fun because I was learning and doing something new. And
That's fantastic.
yeah, it was really cool. I'm glad I did it, although I fell behind on all this podcast stuff too. I haven't really
Yeah,
kept
but
up.
that's just perspective, right? You
Yeah,
know,
it's-
you should be doing it as you feel it. And if you're feeling like it's a chore and it's work,
Yeah.
you're not going to be doing the interviews you should be doing anyways. But when you feel inspired to do it, I feel like that's...
Yeah, you got to kind of chase that inspiration to keep
Yes,
motivated
yeah.
because it's really hard to stay motivated too. And it's hard with like talking about ayahuasca, you go through these experiences, you have these profound life-changing things, and then you kind of you always end up back where you were at some point and you go, okay,
It's hard to go back and
how do
find
I
it again.
like
Yeah.
change now, or what do I do?
Yeah.
It's-
How am I going to evolve this way
Yeah, there's
and,
no
and
easy
stick to the
answer, really.
truth?
yeah.
No, there is no easy answer because it's also different for each of us too, right? It's listening to your inner self again, having that mind-body connection and really paying attention to it instead of we're so outside ourselves. And it's still hard for me to stop worrying about what people think about me, what I'm supposed to be doing, what the
Right.
pressures of my family and everything need of me, where I'm supposed to be in the world. It's really hard to follow your
yeah.
heart when you have
There's so many pressures out there and these expectations of how we're supposed to live.
what we're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why, there's definitely more pressure when I come back to Canada than when I go to these communities in Costa Rica and things like that. And these people are happy and they're elevated. They're super resonating high.
Right.
A lot of them 100% raw vegan, you know, into the whole healing aspect of stuff. It's amazing watching.
Right.
And again, not 100% sure that's for everyone. It works for them. Definitely being more healthy and eating more vegetables and more fruit can't hurt anyone.
Yeah.
So it's definitely more positive. I
You do
don't...
notice being around people like that. Like I know what you mean. It's funny too. A lot of people I talk to about this stuff too, they just repeat this idea that we need new language to talk about this stuff because, you know, some of this stuff was like some of these ideas were talked about in like the 60s or whatever when LSD was really popular and people were talking about love and energies and all this stuff, and so people now have this weird connotation to something like energy. Like you
Yeah, they
feel
shut
someone's
down as soon
energy,
as you
and you're
hear
like,
this
"Oh,
word. Yeah.
God,
Oh, hippie.
God, you know.
It's true. It's true. We do need
But-
a new language
But
for
there
this.
is something there, I think, and I yeah, you feel people's energy, whether you want to call it that or not. It's aura or you know
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
right? It's there.
And that's the thing is, my instincts aren't wrong, my gut instincts, but I have never really, through most of my life, I've gone against it, not
Yeah.
trusting in it. And when I learned to do that and go against the grain, and that's how I feel sometimes, is that all the fish are swimming this way and I'm swimming the opposite
Right.
way. And only then did I feel comfortable in my own skin, though.
Right. You
And-
feel like
and-
you're making choices, like you're
Yeah.
deciding your path at that point.
Yeah, and I felt comfortable when I was trying to fit in and do what everybody else was doing
Mm-hmm.
and try to be cool. And that's when I wasn't happy because
Right.
I was trying to live somebody else's happy or comfort or whatever that is of what the mainstream is doing, and definitely not mainstream, I guess.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the hard part of I know people, I can just picture people listening and going like, well, just give me an answer. What do I do? You know, it's like it's really hard because there's no pill you take and there's no one thing you have to do. You have to just learn how. And what Phil Gattensby, who works in Whitehorse with people who have addictions and things, one thing I like that he says, he phrases it when he's helping people who are trying to recover from like alcohol addiction or things, and it's not that he's like healing them. He's saying everyone has a map. We all have a map in us, and we just have to find the map. Like you have to look for your own map, and it's gonna
Yeah.
be different than everyone else's
Yeah.
map.
But he's giving them the tools to find that map.
Yeah, it's like empowering
Yeah.
people to do that.
Yeah.
But it's and even, you know,
And this is exciting. This has like boosted my energy up, just having this conversation and reminding me
Yeah,
of the
it's fun.
truth that I do know. But once I come back to this life, and I'm working out in the bush right now, 12-hour days, and I've been doing this for a couple years, and I definitely need to stop doing this because it feels like I make this money. I can go to Nicaragua, Costa
Right.
Rica, have this wonderful life. But I come back and I find such peace the more and more I go, that I come
Right.
back and I'm more unbalanced.
oh yeah, you go back further the other way. 'Cause you're like,
Yes.
oh, I don't want to be back here now.
Yeah, I find such peace and happiness
Hmm.
and such a groove. And then I come back and I'm forcing myself to be somewhere I really don't want to be. And, you know, I mean, not that my job is good. It's, you know, it's as good as far as jobs go, but I could be doing something a lot more meaningful.
Right.
And even if I painted rocks down in Costa Rica and lived in a cheap little cabin on the beach, I'm happy. I don't
Right.
need for anything. And that's really the point too. I think people need to downsize, give up your dominion. It doesn't mean you need to be a hippie like me and not have anything. That's not the point. It's so many people say to me, how do you live this life? And I think if you sell your RV or your SUV and you sell, you know, maybe get a cheaper phone plan and not have internet and give up your landline and just, you know, buy a used car and things, you could save money. You just, but we get so used to it, it becomes this.
It's the lifestyle.
And shopping's an addiction.
Yeah, it is for sure.
You know, it gives you this rush. And I've gotten really good at it because I think I'll go to town here to buy something I need and it's $80 because it's Dawson or $120. I'm like, I'm just going to wait. I can put up with what I've got until I get down to Value Village.
Yeah.
And then I can buy stuff and go traveling.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like trying to find the priorities in your life. Like, what do you need? What do you actually want? What actually affects you in a good way? A lot of the stuff.
And we're all made different. Like, that's why Ayurveda too, when I meet somebody who's super kapha and is more like a rooted energy, they don't need to travel the way that I need to travel. They are 100% satisfied being in one place and being who they are. So we need to stop imposing how we feel about our lives on other people. I am so different than others. I can't expect them living my lifestyle is going to make them happier. It could make them crazier or have more anxiety possibly.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's great for everyone.
Yeah.
It really is just finding, like you said, your map.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. And how do people do that? So then meditation's a good way. But there's so many different types of meditation. Some runners, you're meditating.
Yeah, totally,
when you're focused and you're drawing, you're meditating. Let your mind not have all that mind play. Mantras really work for me. Before I go to bed, when I wake up in the morning, just to stop my head from thinking of things.
Yeah, that's basically the meditation, I think. And I think a lot of people have a weird idea of meditation.
And they think, I'm not getting there. Where am I going? What's happening?
All these thoughts, I got to make all these thoughts go away. And then you're just like staring at a wall and you're just, you know, and it's boring. But you can meditate in a way that's not boring. Like you can meditate in a way that channels your focus in some way.
So when you're drawing, a thought comes into your head and you go, wow, what's that thought? Just be aware of that thought. Because I think one of the most profound things about meditation and focusing on that was realizing that my thoughts and people's thoughts that's not you. It's not you. It's like symptomatic of your environment and what you've been exposed to all the time. So when you have a sick, twisted thought in your head, don't own that. That's not you.
You don't have to judge yourself.
Yeah, based on that, either. You saw some weird porn or you saw some weird thing back in your head and it's flashing, and don't own that. Let it go, and start to become aware of your thoughts. And once you do through meditation, wow, I really obsess about that.
Right.
And then I could get rid of it. Yeah. Then I can stop doing it. I can see it coming in and go, oh no, I'm not doing this. Or after I had after this interview, I'll be like, Anna, did I say the right things? Did I overanalyze the whole thing? Let it go. What is, it's not going to change anything. So why keep playing it over and over?
It's so hard not to do that. You get obsessed.
It's true.
Yeah. You kind of got to move on.
It is true.
I've been thinking about this a lot, this random idea, because I talk to people about healing a lot, like what the idea of what healing is and how you heal, and psychedelic healing and ayahuasca and all this stuff. And it's funny because and I think about that with myself, because something will happen and I'll be miserable for a while and I'll have to heal, I'll move on. But I feel like now, I don't know if people ever actually heal. Maybe we just move on. Like you just move forward. Like I don't know if you really go back. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you go back to like a traumatic event.
That's interesting. I think we always have that
it's still
scar.
There. Yeah, we have the scar still.
Yeah, and I mean, the more time goes by, the easier it gets, where you're not attaching to that scar, and you move.
Like you're always gonna have those anxious thoughts still. It's not like you're gonna be healed of anxious thoughts. Like they're still gonna be there. But you just kind of deal with them a different way. Like,
but instead, I kind of look, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong. And I'm willing to admit that, because I'm not God. And to me, or the powers that be, whatever you want to call it, only they would know.
Right.
So I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, you can kind of plead ignorance or something or at some level, you just accept that you don't know what's right or wrong. and you just, you kind of just
Humble
gotta let it
yourself
go.
to that.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And well, what I was going to say was that, sorry, after Music Fest weekend, my brain is not working.
I think we're doing pretty good after last night.
But I try not to. I think the traumatic, what we want to label as bad events in our lives, traumas,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
happened in my life based on that's what helped create who is sitting in front of you right now.
That's right. Yeah.
So I do believe that we perceive things oddly. I now see that things aren't bad. It always goes to good. They happen for a reason, to shift you in a different way. We need the bad with the good.
Right.
How can I feel elevated? And I like that feeling if I've never felt down in the dumps.
Yeah.
That
seems like some kind of truth too. And Phil Gattensby actually said the exact same, like, because he, Phil is a guy in Whitehorse, and he talked about early on when I did this podcast with him, we talked about his troubled upbringing. He was in residential school in the Yukon and went to prison when he was 16 years old and all this stuff. But now he's like, I don't look at that like bad events in my life. It's not like you can ask me about anything and I'll talk about it.
That's so great, because he's good for the people around him and his people and the indigenous people around him.
Oh, he's great.
I worked with the First Nations here for years, helping rehabilitate actually some of the First Nations and a work opportunities program. And that's one of the best jobs. They canceled the program, unfortunately. But wow. So I'm really close with the First Nations. Come to think of it, Moose High Gathering is next weekend. And that's really important for me to go to. That's a big cultural event here.
Yeah, but like to not look at those events as just bad events, that they shape you and that you have developed, you'll inevitably develop something good out of something bad happening to your
That's right.
bad situations. Yeah.
And that's it. It's learning to accept. I think I focused on spirituality because I had this huge fear of death when I was younger. I used to kind of cry myself to sleep worrying about my mother dying. And it's odd, isn't it, that the biggest fear most people have is the only sure thing you actually know. Everything else is a question.
Right.
So let's try to welcome death as it's just ending to it's just another step somewhere else, as far as I kind of believe, and who knows what that is, but I don't really, it's as sure as birth.
Yeah.
And then we worry and fear it. We need just to accept it.
It's actually kind of hilarious that we fear it at all, because it happens to literally every one of us. And it's been happening since the beginning of us being here.
It's kind of screwed up, really.
It's a little
kind of backwards.
Yeah, but you can't, it's obviously scary because it's the unknown. We have no idea what's next. But
absolutely. And I'm not saying I haven't had people pass away in my life and it be hugely traumatizing.
Yeah.
I just think, and that's a natural emotion, to mourn and to be sad. But as I was taught from a guru, he said, people don't want to believe it, but that lump in your throat is your ego. And he said, when you feel that pain so bad that it's stuck in your throat, he said, you need to let it go, because that's your want to smell that person, to hold that person, to have them another day. And this is their time.
Right.
And you need to let it go and just accept and let that lump go in your throat. And that's beautiful. It really helped me deal with my uncle's passing, actually.
Yeah.
And I actually moved up here based on him, and I put his ashes up on the dome here. I made a conscious effort that his life wouldn't have been lived in vain. I was going to live for him, because that's what he loved most about me.
Oh, yeah.
And he kind of said that on his deathbed is, I live my life wrong and you do it right. And that was really hard to hear. And he had been working for this dream he had.
Right.
Of where he was going to live and what he was going to do. And then he got pancreatic cancer and fell to his death not 4 weeks later.
Oh, wow.
And so after we dealt with his passing, I grabbed his ashes and I moved up to Dawson City, and I said, I'm going to live for you. And that's what I did.
Wow. That's the lesson though, right? Is like, I think a lot of people live that way. Like, oh, one day I'll be happy once I do this I do this and I get this done and I'm here and I have this. But we got to start living for today. That's right. The idea, right?
That's right.
What else do we have?
Absolutely. I'm trying to think of advice. I guess the only advice I have for people is to really try to disregard the outside pressures in their life, as hard as that sounds. Because being a martyr is not doing anybody, like for my friends who have children, I'm always saying, don't be too much of a martyr. Their happiness lies in your happiness.
Yeah.
We remember, you remember what it's like to be a child. If they were happy, and it doesn't matter where they took us, what we did in life, you can take us anywhere and do anything. We're malleable as children.
Yeah.
But the adults were the ones that have the blocks.
Yeah.
You know, in their heads is, oh, what about my kids? What about changing the school? They'll adapt.
Yeah.
You make you happy and focus on you, and
right.
You know, it'll have that effect. Don't worry about your children. We're so caught up in that.
I think people, definitely. There's that whole like wave of the helicopter parent now who just is so obsessed with their kids and trying to control everything they do and make sure they get everything, and then they just abandon themselves. They're just like, the kid's important, you know, they need everything. And
you're gonna fuck up, you're gonna err. That's human, and they've got their cross to bear just like any of us, and their bangs are gonna happen, and you're gonna have to be strong enough to deal with it, because I think having a child is like having your heart walk around exposed outside your body. It's pretty freaking scary, you know?
It must be.
And you have to be stronger and not give in, especially if you want to help shape them so that they aren't in a glass house.
Yeah. Well, it's like you were saying, like really early on, about just being a bit selfish, like learning to be a little bit, take care of yourself first, because you're not going to help anyone if you're...
Okay, you just triggered my thought, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
Is to me, that was important, is learning how, I don't know, I hate the words, like you said, the language, selfish. I always had this martyr issue of wanting to help the world. So when I go to third world countries, I should donate all my time to doing this and doing that. But again, that's an ego thing. Of course, help. But help and know your limits of when you're exhausting yourself. Because if I'm not happy and balanced and do my yoga and take time for me and resonate really high, I'm not helping the world. By me being super happy, Rebecca, that everybody knows, I make them feel good about themselves. So when I'm resonating high and I'm well balanced, I am helping the world.
Right.
And that's my only little job. I'm just an ant. I'm just a tiny little ant worker who needs to work with all the other little ant workers to make this a better place. I'm not one person who's going to save the whole world.
Right.
You know? And I think that was a huge epiphany as well, is be selfish, take time for you, create that balance, because you can't give of yourself and be balanced, and you're not doing the world that big a favor anymore. People need to learn from example.
Yeah, absolutely.
They see me being happy and being free, and they want to do these same things. So just keep living your life and doing what makes you happy and finding your passion. I think passion is huge, you know, and a lot of us live very passionless lives, I think. And I've actually had in my past a guy break up with me who said, I love you to the moon and back. I'll stay with you, but I don't share this passion for life that you have. And I don't think I'm ever going to. And that was a sad breakup, because I realized that he was right. He really didn't. He just kind of existed.
Well, you made him feel bad by being so.
Well, maybe I didn't mean to. He just said, like, you want to go places and do things, and I just don't have that same fire in me for one reason or another. And it was true. So I always kind of felt like I should just exist with him because I loved him and wanted to be with him, and
he didn't want to hold you back.
He didn't want to hold me back. Yeah. So that, you know, it's interesting. Cool. And all relationships for a reason, you know?
Yeah. Man, I think we did awesome on this podcast here. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I was up till like 2 a.m. last night with the rap music going on. There was like pot smoke all over the
I worked all week long, then came in and then had like just an hour to get ready and then get to the tent to volunteer at the merchandise tent.
It's funny, these conversations though, every time I talk to someone, my energy is now like growing,
me too, and I needed this desperately. I realized this will be the last summer that I work in a camp like this in Dawson City. When I lived in town and I had a job, I was singing in a band in town.
Right.
I could have a routine of some kind.
I see.
I feel exhausted. I'm not good with the 12-hour days. It's just not made for me. I'm not saying it's not good for other people. Again, to each his own and what works for you and what doesn't. But it's really blocking out everything else and finding some type of meditation in essence.
But at the same time,
to be aware,
you do need some money to live, and there's
always give and take. And ideally, if you can find what makes you really happy. So I like being outdoors. Most of the outdoor jobs I've had here make me ecstatic. So I'm connected to nature. I'm outside. As much as I'm working in the bush, I'm still just taking care of a camp. So I'm indoors most of the day, cleaning, running the camp, servicing generator, running water pump.
Yeah.
You know,
You're not
so
kayaking or
I'm not
whatever.
hiking much. I try to push myself at the end of my shift to go for a hike, you know,
Yeah.
just to, and that always makes me feel better though, if I can have the energy to get out.
Yeah.
And I do believe nature talks to you, and that's a huge thing that you'll find after with ayahuasca. And I've actually witnessed with people who are more vegan, which is interesting, in the way they interact with nature. So think about this for a minute. It's interesting that if, and I'm not I eat wild meat when there's wild meat around sometimes still, but I'm usually quite vegetarian. I have no judgments at all, because I think we're all different, and you have to go to where you're happy
Are
and what
you
works.
choosing to do that because of like how animals are treated kind of thing, or like health
More
reasons?
based on what's in it and how they're treated, both of it together. I don't want to eat lots of hormones and pump full of antibiotics. I already have a super bug, and that's a long story, so I don't ever take antibiotics. But when you watch, animals have an incredible sense of smell, and we know this. So if your body is profoundly has large quantities of meat, you give off, the animals know.
They smell that.
And for vegans and stuff, when you watch the way that animals kind of interact with people who don't have a meat-based diet, they are more likely to respond to vegans, and it's really interesting.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
because they think they're not gonna like eat them? Is that why? Like if people have meat in their belly, it's like, this guy might eat me.
I don't really want this part on the record on this at all,
Okay,
but cut. Again, I don't believe people should not eat meat. Living up here in the Yukon taught me some people really need to eat meat to sustain. How would they survive in the winters up here? You can't eat berries all winter long and be sustained on that. But the point is when they did take a life, they felt it. So when I first moved up here, I killed a turkey. And I did it on purpose because I felt like robbed of the fact that I'd eaten meat my whole life and had never seen the whole. And I kind of believe if you can't see the whole process or do it, you shouldn't eat it.
You not understand fully what you're actually doing by eating it.
So when I slit the turkey's throat and I felt the heartbeat leave, that was pretty profound. Okay. That was pretty emotional. I took the life of another living creature, but I felt it hit me then that if you feel that, then it's right, because you feel an appreciation and some sense of feeling, not nothing. If you're just out there trapping, killing, you feel nothing. There's no conscience with what you're doing.
Right.
I don't agree. There's no thanks in there. There's no appreciation. There's no transference.
Yeah, it depends how you're doing it. So
Absolutely.
you can't just say hunting is good or bad. It's how you're
Exactly.
how
And I mean, I don't love trapping, but I'm not going to judge. People have been up here trapping and for furs and people trophy hunt, and I have friends who do this, and there's always a gray area. We're so quick to argue points, black and white. We never look in the gray to actually talk like civilized humans about the details of it's going to be done anyway. So let's hope somebody's running it that respects the animals and is looking for the oldest grizzly or the oldest sheep on the mountain to take down. He's going to die a horrible death coming off that mountain.
Right.
Let's hope that it's the guy who's going to, there's all shades.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't know. It's hard. I don't know what I believe as far as that stuff goes. I really don't know. But I do agree. Like it's really clear that we've gone way too far in this one direction. So we have to pull it back.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all know how we're eating the way the cows are treated and chickens.
Yeah, it's brutal. If you actually watch like the videos of it that are out there now, like the people who go undercover into the employees will actually do some undercover footage of how all these pigs are being treated or whatever, and it's
and what
really
these antibiotics and what's in the meat, what it's doing to our system, eating it over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
And killing our bodies.
And just what you said, like just about being like the takers and just these people, and we're in that culture now. Like this is what we're living in, is this culture of like mass consumption, like having way too much stuff, like using way too much and not giving enough.
Well, Jen
back.
had this good idea. Like right now she's living in Yukon housing. And what's interesting is she said, I don't know why everyone owns a lawnmower. It should be like in a community this, we have one shed and we all buy the lawnmower and the tools. Why does everyone have to have a leaf blower? Why does everybody have to have a lawnmower?
Exactly.
Why can't we?
I'm understanding this now. We just bought a house and I'm like, fuck, I need so many tools. Like it's why I have to buy all these tools, and it's ridiculous. I don't need them that often. I mow my lawn once.
But that's what I mean. If I have the lawnmower, I should lend it to you. You have respect to take care of it or whatever.
Yeah.
It should be more like like that.
But that's not the most.
But we can't give up our dominion.
But that's not how you make money, too.
We don't want. Yeah, I know.
People want, they market it that way. Like you have all this stuff.
I'm actually quite cheap and frugal, but I realize I'm also doing a service to the world by buying used things. I will buy new shoes because it's shoes most of the time, things like that. But I'll buy all used pants, shirts. I find the greatest styles in Value Village. I don't have to pay. I can't imagine paying $150 for a brand new pair of jeans. It's crazy to me.
It's brutal, yeah.
And
buying used is the way to go. I'm learning that more and more. I had to buy, because I got this truck now. I bought a truck and I realized having big tires means the tires are super expensive. So brand new, I had to buy winter tires or summer tires, and they're $1,400 just for 4 tires. But then I was like, God, I couldn't afford it. I had to find another way. So I had to go. I went to a salvage yard. And I found tires that were only a year old that had almost full tread. I got them for $400.
See, perfect. Perfect. Like, good and resourceful of you. That's perfect.
And now after doing that, I'm like, oh,
you could do this with
I'm never buying anything new ever again.
Absolutely. God. Absolutely. Like, it's pointless. And like you said, people get used to this money. I've worked in the mines up here and been exposed to a lot of miners. A lot of my friends run dozers, excavators.
Oh, yeah.
They get so used to the money. They buy these big, giant, excessive trucks, and then they're paying it off, and you get so used to this money, you can never walk away from this job now. So what are you going to do to your body and your mind? Right.
You're forcing yourself. You're putting the golden handcuffs. That's what
golden handcuffs.
Yeah, the golden handcuffs.
That's exactly right.
You can't quit your job. You need
and
the
I'm
job.
still part sellout, but there's a balance. It's like there's this one guy I know in town, and I have all the respect for him. You ever read the book Into the Wild?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I saw the movie.
Yeah, and the movie, right. Yeah. So the book's definitely way better. Yeah. And there's a guy who lives here like that. And really? He is amazing.
Well,
yeah.
We're in Dawson, yeah.
But this is a line. I can't cross over that huge. I mean, that would be cutting off family, friends. He lives way upriver. He canoes 10 hours upriver to be by himself.
Wow.
And to live like that. And I fully respect what he's doing,
Right.
Kudos to him. That is amazing. And I don't think he should be judged. A lot of people judge him. Oh, he's living off the grid, or he's just a bum. And no, he's actually a really smart guy who just is sick of...
He's got to live his way. Find a different way. Yeah.
He's sick of the
It's hard. That's
the machine.
My struggle too is like, I agree with a lot of these ideas, and I want to incorporate this and share this with my community and all this stuff. But like, how? It's like,
baby steps.
It's so hard. Yeah, it is really like that, baby steps. And
it is.
Just that idea, like we touch on this a lot, but just the idea of be the change, like Gandhi's quote, be the change that you want to see in the world. You have to just do it.
Yes, that's right. And by you just doing this, what a huge service to the world you're doing, because you're creating you have a medium here where you can educate the world based on these. And I really consider it plant medicines. We can call it psychedelics, drugs. I hate these words because it definitely doesn't apply to mushrooms and ayahuasca. And a lot of people I know who do mushrooms will just get drunk and go to the bar. And I think that
you can use it in different ways.
I think whenever I do those things, I want to go out into the bush and go for a walk in nature and really feel it and experience it. It wasn't based on the party aspect of it. I was always kind of really interested.
I like thinking them as tools, whereas like it's a tool that you can use as a medicine, but you can cut your leg off with a chainsaw, or you can cut a tree down and build a house.
I like that.
You can do different things.
Yeah.
You can use them. You can abuse these things too. They're dangerous if they're...
I was picturing a comic about ayahuasca, like mushrooms, or drugs, period. You can use it to cut your own leg off, or you can cut down the tree, which is productive, and make a house.
Yeah. Anyway, I think
this is a good interview.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really pumped me up.
I'm really glad you agreed to talk to me.
Good.
Thanks so much.
You're really welcome. It was great. It was a pleasure.